Imagine it's 1957. On a Saturday morning, you drive your brand new V8 Coupe straight out of the dealership. There are no national speed limits. The police? They haven't caught up with radar yet. You hit the gas, and within seconds, the car screams like a jet, pinning your back to the seat. Welcome to the 1950s, an era where speed wasn't a crime, but a statement made by an entire generation. This was a time when the fastest cars in the world weren't locked away in secret garages. They were parked right outside your house. Fire-breathing V8 engines, featherlight frames, and engineers unafraid to challenge the laws of physics. In this video, we'll explore 24 of the fastest cars from an unforgettable decade. Machines that redefined the idea of a civilian car and made the world see America in a whole new light. And you might be surprised, because a few names on this list you may have never even heard of. 1949, Oldsmobile Rocket, 88. If you had to name the very first true American muscle car, many would point straight to the Rocket 88. Back in 1949, when most cars were still running flathead or underpowered inline sixes, Oldsmobile did something revolutionary. They combined their lightweight mid-size 76 body with a brand new overhead valve V8, the Rocket 303 cubic inches. The result? A coupe that could move, muscle, and challenge just about anything on the road. The Rocket V8 produced about 135 horsepower, but more importantly, it delivered torque early and hard, something stock car racers instantly fell in love with. On the NASCAR tracks, the Rocket 88 quickly gained legendary status. And on the streets, it lit a fire under post-war youth hungry for speed. It wasn't the prettiest, it wasn't the most luxurious, but it was the first car to say, power can belong to the people. Over 70 years later, the Rocket 88 is still regarded by enthusiasts as the cornerstone. Without it, the muscle car movement as we know it may never have happened. 1956, Hudson Hornet, V8 Hollywood. Mention the Hudson Hornet and most people picture the inline-six beast that dominated NASCAR in the early 50s. But few know that, in its final years before the merger, Hudson released something special, the Hornet V8 Hollywood, with a bold step into the muscle era. For the first time, Hudson moved beyond its signature 6 and adopted a Packard-sourced 352 cubic inch V8, pushing out 285 horsepower, highly competitive for its time. More than just an engine swap, this fastback two-door coupe featured improved suspension, better aerodynamics, and a design that was both elegant and unmistakably bold. Despite the flashy Hollywood name, this car wasn't just about looks. It was Hudson's last defiant stand. From a small brand that once shook up the racing world. While it was overshadowed by bigger names, the V8 Hornet kept its fighting spirit alive. Today, it's rarely seen on muscle car lists, but once you know its story, it becomes clear. This was one of the rare transformations where a track legend tried to take its power to the streets and did it with class. 1957, Rambler Rebel. When you think muscle car, AMC probably isn't the first name that comes to mind. But in 1957, they created one of the boldest and most shocking sleeper cars of the decade. The Rambler Rebel, a four-door sedan that looked pretty tame. But don't be fooled. Underneath was AMC's brand new 327 cubic inch V8, making 255 horsepower, tucked into a compact, lightweight body. The result? The Rebel was America's fastest production sedan in 1957, outpacing big names like the Chevy Bel Air and Ford Fairlane. It could do 0 to 60 miles per hour in just about 7 seconds, blazing fast for a family car. And here's the twist. AMC even experimented with electronic fuel injection on the Rebel. If it had launched, it would have been the first EFI production car in America. Though cancelled last minute, it showed how ahead of its time the Rebel really was. The Rambler Rebel wasn't flashy. It didn't shout for attention. But it stood as a symbol of hidden performance. Humble on the outside, fierce within. 1957, Ford Thunderbird supercharged. When Ford introduced the Thunderbird in 1955, they didn't call it a sports car. They called it a personal car. Luxurious, elegant, but with a rebellious streak hiding beneath the suit. And by 1957, that streak turned into a serious weapon. The Ford Thunderbird Supercharged was a special, ultra-rare edition. At its heart was a 312 cubic inch V8 fitted with a McCulloch supercharger, pushing output to 300 horsepower, an impressive figure for a small two-seater. This T-Bird wasn't just about looks, it blurred the lines between style and performance. With a solid chassis, refined suspension, and the signature whine of its supercharger under acceleration, it felt like a race car in a tuxedo. While it may not fit the traditional muscle car mold, the Thunderbird Supercharged proved one thing: power doesn't have to shout. Sometimes it whispers just loud enough to make everyone else nervous. 1956, Packard Caribbean. If there's one car that blends American muscle with aristocratic elegance, it's the Packard Caribbean. While the rest of Detroit raced toward tail fins and space-age looks, the Caribbean took a different path. Refined power, built to last, and produced in ultra-limited numbers. Visually, it was one of the most stunning two-door coupes of its time. Hand-finished tri-tone paint, premium leather interior, and gleaming chrome details. But the magic lived under the hood. A 374 cubic inch V8, the largest engine Packard ever built, delivering 310 horsepower and over 400 pound-feet of torque. It also featured the advanced torsion-level suspension, allowing the car to remain level under hard acceleration or braking. Despite weighing nearly 5,000 pounds, the Caribbean could launch with surprising urgency, catching lighter rivals off guard. Only about 276 units were ever built, making the 1956 Caribbean not just rare, but a proud farewell from Packard before the brand faded into history. 1958, Pontiac Bonneville. By the late 1950s, Pontiac was in an identity crisis. The brand was seen as a car for old folks, and that had to change. The answer came in the form of a name that would become legendary: Bonneville. In 1958, Pontiac launched the first full production version of the Bonneville, and it was unlike anything the brand had done before. Every Bonneville came standard with Rochester mechanical fuel injection, a cutting-edge move in an era where most American cars still relied on carburetors. Its 370 cubic inch V8 delivered between 310 and 330 horsepower, depending on setup. But the Bonneville didn't just talk numbers. It had sharp styling, a long and low stance, thick chrome trim, and a luxurious interior. Everything fused into something that was both powerful and elegant, like a muscle-bound gentleman in a tux. And that's what Pontiac pulled off, turning Bonneville into a true symbol of American performance, laying the groundwork for icons like the GTO that would follow. 1957, Chevrolet Corvette Fuelie. This wasn't just an early Corvette, it was a milestone. The 1957 Chevrolet Corvette Fuelie was America's first production car to feature mechanical fuel injection, a technological leap ahead of its time. Under its sleek fiberglass body sat the legendary 283 cubic inch V8, and with the optional ramjet fuel injection system, it delivered 1 horsepower per cubic inch, 283 horsepower. An insane number for 1957. Picture this: a car weighing under 2,600 pounds could launch from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 5.7 seconds. While most sedans back then struggled to get under 12 seconds, the Corvette Fuelie wasn't just fast, it was a symbol of innovation. It proved that America didn't need to mimic Europe. It could build its own homegrown supercar. Today, surviving Fuelies in original condition are collector treasures, with prices climbing into the 6-figure range. 1955 Chrysler C300. In 1955, if you wanted the fastest car in America, you didn't go for a Corvette or a Thunderbird. You went for the Chrysler C300, a massive 4,000-pound beast that could outrun nearly anything on the road. This 2-door coupe packed a 331 cubic inch Hemi V8. But not just any Hemi. Chrysler borrowed race engineering tricks to create a high-performance version. Hotter camshaft, higher compression, and twin 4-barrel carburetors. The result? 300 horsepower. A number few dared to print on a sales brochure in the 50s, hence the name C300. On the track, it made immediate noise. The Chrysler C300 dominated Daytona Speed Week and early NASCAR events. It wasn't a nimble sports car, it was a muscle car in a tuxedo. Chrysler didn't just build a fast car, they launched a legend, the very foundation of their iconic Letter Series performance line, 1956 Jaguar XKSS. If the Corvette Fuelie defined American speed, then the Jaguar XKSS was Britain's answer, a machine that blended raw performance with elegance, wrapped in racing scars. The XKSS was essentially a road-legal version of the Jaguar D-Type, which had conquered Le Mans. When Jaguar pulled out of racing in 1956, they decided to convert 25 leftover D-Type chassis into street cars, and thus the XKSS was born. It featured a 3.4-liter inline 6, producing around 250 horsepower, housed in an ultra-light aluminum body. It could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just about 5.2 seconds, quicker than almost any American car of the time. But speed wasn't its only story. In 1957, a fire at Jaguar's Browns Lane factory destroyed 9 of the 25 XKSS cars, leaving only 16 survivors. That tragedy instantly turned it into an ultra-rare collector's gem, later immortalized by actor Steve McQueen, who called it the best car I've ever driven. Today, the XKSS isn't just a car, it's a fusion of speed, style, and fate. And in this list, it stands as the European jewel among a sea of American muscle. 1957, Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing. In an era when most American cars relied on carburetors and heavy steel bodies, the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing looked like it had come from the future, in both design and technology. Though launched in 1954, the final Gullwing Coupe in 1957 remained one of the fastest cars on Earth. It featured a 3.0-liter inline-6 engine with direct fuel injection, a technology that wouldn't become mainstream until the 1980s. With around 215 horsepower and a lightweight aluminum body, the 300 SL could reach a top speed of 161 miles per hour, a mind-blowing number for the 1950s. And then there were the Gullwing doors, not just stunning, but also a clever solution for the car's high tubular frame. Every time you stepped in, it felt like boarding a spaceship ready to take flight. The 300 SL wasn't just fast, it was a statement of precision, innovation, and elegance. A car that showed the world what German engineering was truly capable of. Today, the Gullwing stands as one of the most valuable collector cars on the planet because it wasn't just about speed. It carried the dream of a future we all once imagined. 1954, Oldsmobile Super 88, Rocket V8. Before the term muscle car became legendary, the Oldsmobile Super 88 Rocket had already nailed the formula: take a big, powerful V8 and drop it into a mid-size body. What you get is a budget-friendly street warrior. In 1954, Oldsmobile upgraded the Super 88 with a Rocket V8 320 cubic inch engine, pushing 185 horsepower, an impressive number for a sedan at the time. But it wasn't just about horsepower. The Super 88 had a lighter body than Cadillacs or Buicks, a cutting-edge 4-speed hydromatic transmission, and gearing optimized for acceleration. The result? 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 9 seconds, enough to embarrass some two-door sport coupes of the day. But what really gave the Super 88 its place in history was the Rocket name. In an era when America was obsessed with space, speed, and the atomic age, that name hit like thunder. It wasn't just a car, it was a symbol of forward motion. 1957, Ford Thunderbird E-Code. When Ford introduced the Thunderbird in 1955, they didn't call it a sports car. They called it a personal luxury car, a sleek two-seater for those who wanted style, and a bit of a kick when they floored the gas. But by 1957, the Thunderbird had evolved, and with the E-Code version, it became a true gentleman's hot rod. The E-Code packed a 312 cubic inch V8 with dual 4-barrel carburetors, producing up to 270 horsepower, on par with many performance cars of the era. Despite its weight, thanks to smart gearing and plenty of torque, the Thunderbird E-Code could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 8.5 seconds, blisteringly quick for a luxury cruiser. And here's the twist: Ford didn't build many. Out of over 21,000 Thunderbirds produced in 1957, only around 1,400 were E-Code models, making them a true rarity in the collector world. The Thunderbird E-Code proved that in the 1950s car scene, luxury and performance didn't have to live in separate worlds. 1957, Pontiac Bonneville convertible. In 1957, Pontiac was desperate for a makeover. They wanted to shed their boring image and appeal to a new generation, younger, faster, and hungry for speed. The answer came in the form of a convertible that was stylish, powerful, and just a little rebellious: the 1957 Pontiac Bonneville convertible. This wasn't a regular production car. It was a limited edition, with only 630 units ever built. What made it special was the engine. A 347 cubic inch V8 with Rochester mechanical fuel injection, producing up to 310 horsepower. Impressive numbers, especially paired with a low, lightweight, convertible body. The Bonneville wasn't just fast, it was futuristic. It was one of the first American cars to feature electronic fuel injection instead of a carburetor. It also had a hydromatic transmission, two-tone interior, a sporty steering wheel, and design cues from Pontiac's fresh, wide-track philosophy. This convertible wasn't just about performance, it was a declaration of Pontiac's new direction. It became the opening act to the muscle car revolution that Pontiac would soon lead with the GTO. 1957, Lincoln Premier. Some cars don't need to shout to show their power. They don't wear GT badges or race on the track, but they still earn respect. The Lincoln Premier is one of them. Aimed squarely at the luxury market, the Premier was Lincoln's answer to Cadillac. And Lincoln knew that looks alone wouldn't win the battle. They needed speed. They needed muscle. So beneath the elegant coupe's hood sat the 368 cubic inch MEL V8, the biggest and most powerful engine Ford had put into a production car up to that point. With 300 horsepower and over 400 lb-ft of torque, the Premier wasn't just powerful, it was shockingly quick, especially considering its nearly 5,000-pound curb weight. Driving it offered a strange, exhilarating contrast, a deep V8 growl, forceful acceleration, and the sense that you were piloting something rich but rebellious. The Premier doesn't usually make performance car lists, but it's living proof that big block V8 muscle wasn't limited to lightweight coupes. Sometimes it came wrapped in a true American limousine. 1955 Buick Century. It was often called by a curious nickname, the banker's hot rod, a muscle car for the successful businessman. And if you understand what makes a muscle car, you'll see why the Buick Century belongs on this list. The Century was a blend of two worlds, the compact chassis of the Buick Special and the powerful 322 cubic inch V8, borrowed from the full-size Roadmaster. The result? A coupe that could go 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 9 seconds. Quite impressive for a luxury car of its time. Its 236 horsepower wasn't the highest figure of the decade, but what set the Century apart was how it delivered that power. Smooth, consistent, yet mechanically emotional. It didn't scream like a sports car, but it had the quiet confidence of something that knows it's strong. The Buick Century was one of the earliest examples of the small car, big engine philosophy, the very DNA that would define muscle cars in the 60s. And while it wasn't brash or rebellious, like those that followed, the Century carried muscle in its blood, just dressed in a necktie instead of a t-shirt. 1957, Dodge Custom Royal Lancer D500. In 1957, while GM and Ford flaunted fins and fancy interiors, Dodge had what young drivers really wanted, a two-door coupe with pure track-bred muscle, the Custom Royal Lancer D500. The D500 wasn't just a dressed-up Dodge, it was purpose-built for performance, with a 325 cubic inch Hemi 5.8, featuring hemispherical combustion chambers and pushing up to 310 horsepower in the Super D500 configuration. It included a hotter camshaft, dual 4-barrel carbs, and upgraded suspension. This car accelerated so hard that many street racers of the era dubbed it the Beast of Main Street. Despite its sizable body, the D500's robust drivetrain and 3-speed torque-flight automatic made it a sleeper killer in straight-line runs. The Custom Royal Lancer D500 clearly embodied a new idea. A muscle car didn't have to be small. It just had to be bold enough to stuff brute force into the biggest coupe available. Though few mention it today, in 1957, this Dodge was the top choice for drivers who wanted a street machine, built with real NASCAR blood in its veins. 1956, Mercury Montclair. Amidst a sea of famous names from GM and Mopar, Mercury, Ford's lesser-known division, is often overlooked. But in 1956, they had a strong answer to the rising power wars, the Mercury Montclair. This two-door coupe was a style icon of the 1950s, with sweeping chrome accents, two-tone rooflines, and an interior that looked like it came straight from a sci-fi film. But more importantly, it wasn't just a pretty face. The Montclair came equipped with the Super Marauder 312 cubic inch V8, delivering 210 to 235 horsepower, depending on configuration. And thanks to its relatively light weight, the car could offer surprisingly brisk acceleration. Montclair also had a secret weapon, the smooth, shifting Mercury automatic transmission, enabling near-seamless gear changes and giving the car a ride that felt both refined and forceful. Though it doesn't get remembered as often as its louder rivals, the Montclair played an important role, introducing Americans to the idea of luxury performance, something that would later flourish in upscale muscle cars. 1958 Edsel Corsair. The name Edsel is often associated with failure, but if you look past the marketing missteps and controversial design, there were moments where Edsel truly shined, and the Corsair with the 410 V8 is one of them. The Corsair was a full-size model aimed at the upscale market, big, heavy, and unmistakably different, especially with its polarizing front grille. But here's what most people overlook. It was among Ford's most powerful offerings at the time. Under the hood sat the massive MEL 410Ci V8, cranking out 345 horsepower and over 470 pound-feet of torque, numbers that rivaled high-performance contemporaries like the Chrysler 300 and Pontiac Bonneville. The Corsair also featured an electronic push-button gear selector, a futuristic idea that didn't quite catch on, but showed Edsel's desire to push boundaries in both design and innovation. Though it failed commercially with a roaring V8 heart and a spirit of bold experimentation, the Corsair 410 deserves to be remembered as a hidden muscle car disguised in luxury clothing. 1953 Cadillac Series 62 Coupe Deville. While cars like the Corvette and Thunderbird were built for speed-hungry youth, the Cadillac Series 62 Coupe Deville was made for the gentlemen, those who demanded power, but with poise. In 1953, Cadillac fitted the Series 62 with a 331 cubic inch overhead valve V8, producing around 210 horsepower, an impressive figure for a luxury coupe weighing over 4,200 pounds. Thanks to the hydromatic transmission and refined chassis, it could hit 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 10 seconds, not far behind many so-called sports cars of the era. The Coupe de Ville didn't shout, "I'm fast." It whispered it with confidence. From leather seats and chrome accents to electric windows, every detail reminded you. This was a car for someone who knew what they wanted and didn't need to boast about it. The Cadillac Series 62 didn't break speed records, but it shattered the notion that luxury couldn't be powerful. And on this list, it represents a different kind of speed. Refined, dignified, and undeniably American. 1958 Dodge D500 Super D. While Chrysler was stealing headlines with its 300-letter series, Dodge, the less flashy sibling, quietly dropped a bombshell. The D500 Super D. Based on a full-size sedan platform, the Super D wasn't just a trim package, it was one of the fastest cars of 1958. Under the hood sat a 361 Ci V8 with dual 4-barrel carburetors, delivering up to 320 horsepower, a jaw-dropping figure for a 4-door family car at the time. But it wasn't just brute force. The Super D came with upgraded suspension, larger brakes, and a performance rear axle, transforming it into a true sleeper sedan. Its top speed, around 130 miles per hour, 209 kilometers per hour, enough to keep pace with many dedicated sports coupes. The D500 Super D didn't flaunt its power like a Chrysler or Cadillac. Instead, it was the car of choice for the quiet thrill seekers, those who wanted to fly under the radar at 130 miles per hour. On this list, it stands tall as a symbol of stealthy speed and raw, unfiltered American engineering. 1956 Studebaker Golden Hawk. When you talk about the fastest cars of the 1950s, Studebaker rarely comes to mind. A small automaker without massive budgets or a race team. But the 1956 Golden Hawk made the entire industry do a double take. Beneath its long hood was a surprise, a 352 cubic inch V8 sourced from Packard, pumping out 275 horsepower. In a body weighing just around 3,500 pounds, that made this sleek coupe a genuine performer. The Golden Hawk could launch from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 7.8 seconds, quicker than many larger, more expensive rivals. But it wasn't just about numbers. It delivered a spirited driving experience, tight steering, throaty exhaust, and futuristic styling that turned heads. While it never achieved the fame of the Corvette or Chrysler C300, the Golden Hawk proved you didn't need to be a giant to build something fast. 1957 Desoto Adventurer. In the 1950s, Desoto was often overshadowed by bigger names like Chrysler and Dodge. But in 1957, they launched a car that turned heads, the Desoto Adventurer, a speed machine dressed in luxury. The Adventurer wasn't just a premium trim, it was a true, high-performance model built in limited numbers each year. Under its hood was a 345 cubic inch HEMI V8, producing 345 horsepower. That's 1 horsepower per cubic inch, a rare feat for the time. Thanks to its strong chassis and 3-speed automatic transmission, the Adventurer could hit a top speed of around 130 miles per hour, 209 kilometers per hour, rivaling many track cars of the day. With tuned suspension, larger brakes, and gold-accented detailing throughout, it was equal parts power and elegance. The Desoto Adventurer was a bold blend of performance, luxury, and exclusivity. But with Desoto's demise in the early 1960s, this incredible car was soon forgotten. 1959 Pontiac Bonneville Tri-Power. Before the GTO became a legend, the Pontiac Bonneville Tri-Power was the brand's first secret weapon in the battle for speed. And in 1959, it reached its peak in both power and presence. The Bonneville was a full-size luxury coupe, but don't let its appearance fool you. With the optional Tri-Power package, it came equipped with a 389 cubic inch V8 and 3 two-barrel carburetors, producing up to 315 horsepower. It could hit 0 to 60 miles per hour in just around 8 seconds, impressive for a car tipping the scales over 4,000 pounds. Tri-Power wasn't just about numbers, it was about mechanical finesse and throttle control. The triple carb system activated in stages, cruising on 1, then unleashing all 3 for full power, delivering a sound and surge like a jet engine coming alive. The Pontiac Bonneville Tri-Power was a clear statement. Speed didn't belong only to nimble sports cars. It could live in a refined, full-sized coupe too, made for those who wanted to go fast without making a scene. 1955 Porsche 550 Spyder. Among a list filled with American V8 muscle, the Porsche 550 Spyder stands out as a bold outlier, the smallest but perhaps the most dangerous car of them all. Born in 1953 and perfected by 1955, the 550 Spyder was powered by a 1.5-liter flat-4 engine making just 110 horsepower, which sounds modest until you realize the entire car weighed only 1,200 pounds. Its incredible power-to-weight ratio let it sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 7 seconds, with a top speed of 140 miles per hour, outrunning many American cars with twice the horsepower. More importantly, it was built to dominate the track. Low-slung, perfectly balanced, and razor-sharp in handling. The 550 Spyder is also forever linked to James Dean, who famously drove and died in one. That tragedy immortalized the car as a cultural icon, wrapped in allure and danger. It wasn't for the faint of heart, and it wasn't for everyone. From burly V8 muscle machines to featherlight masterpieces of European engineering, the 1950s were the era that laid the groundwork for the entire culture of speed that followed. The cars in this list aren't just fast, they embody the spirit of conquest, creativity, and freedom. We've seen industry titans like Chrysler, Ford, and GM show off their power. But we also can't forget the smaller players like Studebaker and Desoto, who were willing to challenge the limits in their own unique ways. Some cars were celebrated around the world, while others faded into obscurity. But each one deserves to be remembered as part of the glorious story called speed. So, what about you? Among these legendary cars, which one impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see more videos in this series about the fastest cars in history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next episode.